Scott. This week we're checking out GhostRunner 2, and this is coming off the huge success of the 2020 release of GhostRunner. I'm telling you, I didn't know what to expect jumping this game. You gave me a few insights since you've played the first game. I have not played the first game, but don't worry, you can actually jump into this. There is a little extra section when you first get into the game, and you can actually look at a recap of the first game to understand kind of what's going on in the story with some of the characters as we move into GhostRunner 2. And well, let me tell you, Scott, this game is a blast, but man, it can be tough at times. This is kind of this platformer style game where we're jumping in this cyberpunk world as Jack. We are a ghost runner and we are on this adventure at high speeds, and it's a bit much to get used to when you first get into it, especially for me, man. I haven't played the first one, so like I said, I wasn't sure what to expect. So when you get into this, the fast-paced action of this game is really where the kind of addiction for me comes in. It's tough to get used to at first, but kind of once you master some of the abilities and the movement in this game, it really opens up here, and that's where I found myself really enjoying it, is kind of learning the challenge of just playing the game and then really understanding how to play it and really enjoying it from then on. What did you think coming from the first one now into GhostRunner 2?
I really liked that recap. It was actually successful in giving me goosebumps before I could even start the game. I really, really loved GhostRunner 1, so I kind of have to preface this with that. That was a substantial favorite game in my memory, and it lives on that way. This latest title is no different, and only serves to jack up my fandom in this particular IP, but it is nuts, because you get in, like you say, you're new to the series, getting in there and learning the ins and the outs, the different mechanics of it. It's something that I find is not punishing. This game is incredibly difficult, but I'd say it's more rewarding than punishing. Sure. Because the way you spawn almost instantly and get to try again and again, there are more checkpoints than you'd expect. So some of the times you get smacked down, you're not back loading into a 20-minute episode to get back to where you are. It's nothing like that. So it's something that's much easier to get into than you might first expect. And then as it goes on and on and on, they just keep adding more and more mechanics to this game, to the point where I'm maybe 30 minutes from the end and getting something brand new. So I'm incredibly impressed with this game. But how did you find getting into the different kind of mechanics as they're brought up? Some of them are harder than others.
Yeah, definitely. The nice thing is like you said, it's not difficult to kind of learn them, because what they do is they present them in a way where you kind of get a mini tutorial on what the moves are about, and then immediately get thrown into a scenario where you have to use that. And I mean, that's just the way this game works. And like you said, you know, even if you die the first couple of times, you get to jump right back in there, and just it helps you kind of learn and master those moves before you start to use them kind of at expanse throughout the rest of the game. So I really enjoyed the fact that they introduced them in a way that made it easy enough, but also that challenge was always still there to be able to learn how to integrate these different types of mechanics into what you already know and what you've already learned throughout this game. Because as you start to kind of traverse these huge worlds, which I thought the environment looked really good. I thought obviously our character, we get, you know, to see the arm and the samurai sword pretty much the whole time. There's lots of options for customizing that, which I really like. So you really get to make it your own. I thought it was just so rewarding to finally get there, get to that final checkpoint, move the story forward. And the best part is because you and I are both playing it, I actually get to see how long it took you to play that level and how many times you died. And you and I were actually pretty close the whole way through. So I really like that. Not that it really brought any sort of competition in, but it was just really cool to see, you know, how long it took you and how many deaths it took you to get through the same part that I was struggling with too. And I feel like both of us kind of had the same playthrough all the way.
It turns out, I did all the math by the end of the game. I died 1,440 times. You will die a lot.
Yes, get used to it.
But all that said, this is still my favorite game of the year. So even though that dying wasn't too punishing to put me off, and I found that when the difficulty kind of started to spike, I could adapt to get better. You mentioned the upgrades, and I just want to touch on that, because it's so intricate to where you don't want to add maybe as many upgrades as you can fit, because if you scale it back, some of the upgrades do a secondary effect and become more valuable that way. It's really interesting to think, but I'm throwing shurikens that are doing a giant cast of electricity, and some of these boss fights, some of these boss sections, or just big fight shootout scenarios get so intense. But like you said, you break through that, you get to that giant reward, that aha moment, and you move on further. One of the perhaps underappreciated parts of the game is the incredible soundtrack that's pumping the entire time. You're moving essentially as a cyber ninja, just back and forth, slashing everything in your way, and that pumping beat kind of matches the tempo of what you're doing. I found that really assisted the game, but the only thing that was kind of annoying, that audio-wise, was the clopping of your feet. You can hear the metallic kind of slapping of your feet throughout the entire game, and if you're unknowing, I apologize because now you'll hear it. But that was really the only issue that I had.
I did notice the tippy taps of the feet throughout the whole thing, but like you said, we're dealing with music, awesome sound effects, a ton of action on the screen, so you kind of just lose it in the rest of that. You don't notice it as much. It doesn't detract from the whole experience of the game. But honestly, Scott, our time with GhostRunner 2 has been a blast. Like I said, I've been pleasantly surprised jumping into this as a new player into this series. You're jumping in after the first one into this one. I think we both enjoyed it a ton. If you got to give this one a score out of 10, what are you going to give GhostRunner 2?
Oh, first of all, I have to credit my Xbox Elite controller. You're going to need those paddles to make all these controls, but everything all wrapped up into one. I really, really love Ghost Runner as a series. I did really love the first game, and I found that this one kind of just takes that and makes every aspect of it bigger and better and more explosive. And so when it comes to sequels, this is an excellent sequel to me. This is my game of the year. This is a 9 out of 10.
Oh, nice. You know what? I'm just a little bit lower than you, but honestly, my time with GhostRunner 2 has been awesome. I'm a new fan of this whole series. I'm looking forward to any more of these games that come out because, you know what? I'm probably going to go back and play number 1, and because it's just been so much fun getting into this environment and playing this style of game. I'm going with an 8.5. There's so many good things about this. You know, we didn't even touch on the price tag. We're talking about a $55 game, base game here, Scott. That's huge in comparison to some of the games out there for $50. I think this is an awesome steal, and I'm, like I said, an 8.5.